Howdy folks, Jambareeqi here. I've been ranking every Disney villain. To be precise, House of Mouse rogues from movies made by Disney's mainline studio and its subdivision, Disney Toon. Now it's time for the fourth and final part in the series. Bradley Uppercrust III from an extremely goofy movie. When Max and his friends head to college, they end up making a wager against Bradley, the king of the X Games, a sports tournament for college students. However, Brad is actually a master of cheating, a trust fund baby who can afford to slack off on his studies and put all of his time into creating a cultish fraternity for the X Games. He constantly acts like he has nothing to lose, and it's kind of true. His boundless family wealth also gives him the freedom to commission expensive gadgets for every X Game round. Although Brad deserves credit for his cheating creativity when it comes to every invention, there's a logic to every single one of his tricks and a backup gadget for any failed ideas. Hence why he's had this winning streak as a cheater. Then we have Brad's brilliant dynamic with Max. At first, Brad sees the talented skateboarder Max as the perfect new recruit for his proud fraternity. So he preys on Goofy's son with a slick bravado and even impressively shakes off Max's accidental hot coffee spill just to keep up his smooth guy act. Once Max turns down a chance to join Brad's Moo Moo fraternity, a tense sports rivalry is born, a very competitive relationship fueled by a wager that has a humiliating punishment and the X Games crown on the line. Said rivalry gets even more personal once Goofy is brought into the mix, as Brad uses Uppercrust technology to turn Max's dad into the new campus sports star, all to get back at our hero with a father complex. Yes, Bradders is petty enough to sociopathically turn his rival against his own dad.
If you think you're quitting the Gammas to join that freshman geek son of yours, you got another thing coming.
Although Disney fans best remember Brad for his utterly fantastic character animation, this is a rubbery villain that can stretch like he's made from slime, and the end result is non-stop comedy gold. Brad's stretchy movement and charismatic expressiveness not only make his humiliating reactions 5 times funnier, but also spoil us with a wide array of faces that are freeze-frame worthy.
I will not be ignored.
Amos Slade from The Fox and the Hound. This grumpy and grouchy farmer has a huge passion for hunting, and it's this hobby of his that drives a wedge between his hunting dog Copper and Copper's best friend Todd the Fox. What's fascinating about Amos is that he's so normal. There's nothing extra or glamorous about him, and he strives for nothing more than a humble farming life, with hunting trips thrown in now and again. Sure, he does neglect his pet dogs, and there's certainly favoritism at play, but he's actually quite gentle and affectionate towards them, and he can practice discipline on the young Copper. It's this banality that actually makes Amos into one of Disney's more human villains, an antagonist that reflects the average man's complexities. I mean, his worst habit is his uncontrolled temper, something that pushes him to lose himself in the moment and become a mindless ball of rage.
If I ever catch that fox on my property again, I'll blast him. And next time, I won't miss.
Which entertainingly contrasts against Todd's no-nonsense and maternal owner, who never puts up with a neighbor. As a hunter, Amos prides himself on training both of his dogs to reach their prime and rewards them for their kills, but he's also an active voice of command when he sets Copper and Chief on Todd. It's only when Todd is blamed for Chief's injury that Amos escalates his villainy to extreme levels. Fueled by revenge and wounded pride, Amos abandons any of the hunting ethics or rules that he once followed and uses all of his best tactics to put an end to the fox that he's got a grudge against. This is no longer about the hunt as a hobby, it's now just animal slaughter for the sake of animal slaughter, as Amos traumatizes and terrifies poor Todd and his sweet partner Vixie in their new home in a protected wildland. Surprisingly though, thanks to a brave Copper, Amos's killer drive is squashed just in time. Yes, the very dog that he trained to become desensitized to wiping out critters is the one who forces the unhinged and misguided Slade into facing his humanity, and it's a beautiful moment of inner exploration that shows how Amos isn't just plain evil.
Come on, boy. Let's go home.
Maestro Forte from Beauty and the Beast, The Enchanted Christmas. The castle's maestro is an egomaniac musician that relishes in making the depressed beast into an audience for his bleak brand of music, and he sees the kind-hearted Belle as a threat to his place in the castle. On the one hand, it is kind of annoying that Disney set out to villainize sad music, as if happy, upbeat music is righteous and somber tunes are evil, even though sad songs can be validating for people going through hard times or personal griefs. On the other hand, it's maybe unreasonable to say that Maestro's villainy is that surface level. Sure, sad music can be affirming for those in pain, but in Beast's case, Maestro just seems to be musically encouraging the prince to unhealthily wallow in self-pity. Forte isn't providing music therapy for the prince, he just wants an audience for his vanity concerts.
Your music is the only thing that helps me forget.
Don't worry, old friend. I'm here for you.
this selfish musician doesn't even care what his audience wants or what songs could fit a jovial party's festive atmosphere. He just wants to force people to listen to his music taste. Yeah, he's that guy.
Ugh, I hate it. Forte, that stuff is gloomy.
Most of the castle staff wish to be human again and are willing to play matchmaker for Beast and Belle. But in a fascinating contrast, Maestro is the complete opposite. An anthro object that has found benefits to the curse and will do anything he can to split Beast from Belle.
She's abandoned you. Listen to your old friend, won't you? Have I ever steered you wrong?
While Maestro is stuck to the ground and has no limbs, he doesn't let these physical limitations impose on his villainy. To compensate for his restraints, he wickedly relies on his natural charm and manipulation skills to use others as puppets for his scheme.
Solo for 5 in B flat.
Oh, I'd do anything for a solo.
Yes.
Heck, Maestro is actually the most powerful of all the enchanted staff. He's not just a classical organ with a spooky face. He can actually perform intense supernatural magic and play notes so loud that they can potentially demolish the castle.
Is this happy enough for you, Master? I know. I'm downright giddy.
While I have mixed feelings about this Disney sequel on the whole, I do think that Maestro Forte is a good idea for a Beauty and the Beast villain, a victim of the Enchantress's curse who embraces his transformation while posing as an effective inside threat to restoring things back to normal.
There's the symbol of your curse. Destroy it and end these adolescent notions of love and redemption.
Rourke. From Atlantis: The Lost Empire, this military commander is taking the helm in an exploration mission to the lost city of Atlantis, but he's actually conspiring to steal the Atlanteans' life source for riches. I really think that this villain deserves way more appreciation. Sure, he's not exactly a colourful character, and I would not blame folks for forgetting about him when listing iconic Disney villains, but there's a lot to him that's worth applauding. To begin with, he's one of Disney's best twist villains to me. Like any good twist baddie, Rourke tests the audience's character judgment. So much of his stern and serious behaviour can be casually explained away by the fact that he's a military leader who is stuck with a clumsy nerd with no army experience. Rourke can comfortably slide into this role, all because it's the image that he's lived for years. At the same time though, there are glimpses into Rourke's shady side.
Commander, there were not supposed to be people down here. This changes everything.
This changes nothing.
But Disney also cleverly avoid giving away what he's actually up to. So the eventual twist ends up paying off because we always suspected something. Once the cat is out of the bag, Rourke actually becomes a far more captivating personality. The whole stodgy and stoic commander character is thrown out, and the real Rourke turns out to be this suave and charismatic soldier with a macabre sense of humour. Every single time that the just and compassionate Milo criticizes or challenges Rourke, the commander has a snappy comeback or well thought out counter-argument at the ready.
Well, that changes things. Helga, what do you think?
Knowing that, I'd double the price.
I was thinking triple.
Which really shows how hard he's worked to squash his conscience as a person. Let's also not ignore that Rourke is still a military man. So once the Atlanteans decide to battle their invaders, Rourke can naturally shift into commander mode and confidently take the lead in a climactic war finale.
It's a lot to get under my skin, but congratulations. You just won the solid gold Cupid doll.
The Horned King from the Black Cauldron. This skeletal robed royal is a monster who is after the legendary Black Cauldron, all so that he can resurrect his horrifying army of the dead. Many Disney fans have openly admitted that this shadowy force of evil traumatized them as kids, and I can see why. He's this deformed and jagged skeleton with satanic features and piercing red eyes that's voiced by a hauntingly eerie sounding raspy John Hurt, his every line reverb to otherworldly levels.
I presume, my boy, you are the keeper of this oracular pig.
Of course children are going to get nightmares from a villain this hellish. Compared to the more eccentric House of Mouse rogues, there's something subdued and creepily calm about him. He's so inhuman that his emotions are barren, and dang does that emptiness make his presence seem cold. Heck, I'd actually say that he's at his most cruel and violent towards his minion. It doesn't matter how unconditionally doting and loyal this nasty little imp is to his highness, the Horned King continuously treats his sidekick like a dog toy. Fascinatingly though, the King's weakness is painfully prominent. It's this hindrance that adds a layer of vulnerability to His Majesty's supposed frosty personality. You see, the King's greedy obsession with the Black Cauldron can actually lead to his most embarrassing moments, because he simply can't hold himself together when it comes to the cauldron. On top of all of this, if you think that the Horned King is scary on his own, then boy oh boy, get ready for his dead army. An immortal race of skull soldiers shrouded in ominous fog that will certainly give every kid goosebumps and shivers.
Only moments away from victory.
Dr. Facilier, from The Princess and the Frog, the voodoo shadow man of New Orleans has made a success as a streetwise con man, but he dreams of a far more lavish lifestyle, so he teams up with his friends on the other side to conjure up a dark scheme, as he tricks the dashing Prince Naveen into getting cursed into becoming a frog, and convinces the prince's downtrodden servant, Lawrence, into taking Naveen's place. This villain is totally fantastic in terms of presentation. He's a charlatan who knows exactly how to put on a stunning and exciting show as a con artist, and smooth talk his way into exploiting his victim's biggest weaknesses. But there's also something really unnerving about his shady side. You see, he can't actually perform voodoo magic himself, and he has to worm his way around his friends on the other side to achieve his voodoo-inspired schemes. It's this hindrance that throws a wrench into Facilier's villainy, because there's so much that the Doctor can't do himself. However, his knack is limited to tricking and conning, so he's left to be creative and cunning when things outside of his control fall apart. Plus, the reason why Facilier can't do voodoo himself is left completely ambiguous, and Facilier's supposed friends are just as creepily mysterious. However, despite Facilier's infatuation with voodoo, even he knows that magic has way less value than money. Sure, magic can aid a sorcerer like Facilier in many ways, but in a capitalist New Orleans, it's cash that makes a man into a powerful figure.
I'll have the entire city of New Orleans in the palm of my hand.
Admittedly, I do have some criticisms against Facilier though. As cool as he is, some aspects of his character are kind of lacking. From his sloppy choice to carelessly keep the prince, who he needs for blood draining purposes, inside a fragile glass jar, to his noticeable lack of screen time with our heroine, Tiana, which makes their eventual one-on-one showdown way less intimate and personal than it could have been. In spite of these flaws, I still think that Facilier is a fascinatingly enigmatic and charismatic Disney baddie whose colourful style and street-smart wit utterly fits a dark Cajun fairy tale.
How are you gonna spend the rest of your life being a slimy little frog?
Captain James Hook from the Peter Pan films. This Neverland pirate captain is a bitter old geezer who's obsessed with taking down his rival, Peter Pan. Hook is a deliciously campy villain that wears all of his over-the-top emotions on his sleeves. He's always a delight to watch, all because his flamboyant feelings are so exaggerated and theatrical. However, Hook can be intense and imposing too. I mean, he's a man who will casually shoot a member of his crew just for happily singing, and he has no remorse when it comes to endangering children. Heck, this captain tends to mainly target innocent kids, and there's nothing he'll rule out when attacking or kidnapping them.
And Captain Hook never breaks a promise.
Hook's habit of obsessively overthinking about Peter can drive him to panicky anxiety, but it's also the very root of his ability to calculate his twisted ideas. The more he fixates on Peter, the sooner his next move comes straight to mind, whether that means using Tiger Lily as bait for Peter, or tricking the banished Tink into leading the pirates to Peter's whereabouts. What's also interesting is that Hook is voiced by Hans Conried, the same fella who also plays Wendy's father, Mr. Darling.
Father, what have you done to your shirts?
What have I?
A casting choice that cleverly turns Hook into a fantastical caricature of Wendy's dad, who happens to share Hook's same poor temper and ideas of growing up.
Come on, join up and I'll be frank. Unless you do, you'll walk the plank.
In Return to Neverland, we encounter Hook again, but this time, he's after a lost treasure, a change of pace that prevents our villain from rehashing his same shtick, because the captain's fixation is now switched to a chest of gold. On top of this, Hook's talent for emotionally swaying the needy comes to exceptional use because he ends up sneakily conning Wendy's daughter Jane, as he feeds into Jane's desperate desire to leave Neverland, while also cunningly creating a manipulative sob story that helps him to play victim in Jane's eyes. Sure, this is not a remarkable villain return, and fans may be annoyed at some changes, like switching out the fierce crocodile for a popping octopus, but it's a comeback that brilliantly showcases what makes the dastardly captain so iconic. Now, you may be wondering how I feel about Hook's stint in The Pirate Fairy, which sort of serves as a prequel to the Peter Pan movies. Well, it's an interesting flashback, because it's a lot easier for a younger James to seem innocently youthful to his newest victim, and Tom Hiddleston nails making the captain sound softer spoken. and Hook's decision to appoint Zira as a captain might seem like a bold move, maybe even reckless, but it's actually a great way to make Zira feel empowered enough to not suspect anything. I mean, it's easy for Hook to seem loyal when he's taking on a more subservient role.
And as long as we have the blue dust, we'll never run out of flying dust, right again?
Right again, James.
Well then, we won't need you anymore.
Overall, Hook is one of the best when it comes to the House of Mouse rogues, a solid comical villain that walks the delicate line between silly and insidious.
Thank you, my dear. You've been most helpful.
Prince John from Robin Hood. This slimy and ruthless prince has stolen his brother's throne and turned his family's kingdom into a tyrannical dystopia where the struggling poor are taxed heavily and those who dare to speak up are imprisoned. John is a fantastic example of the Disney comedic villain done right, a mama's boy and man-child that acts as a punchline for the most embarrassing aspects of history's worst tyrants. He thinks that nabbing the crown protects them from any ridicule, but wealth and royalty can't cover up how much of a whiny and cowardly brat he is. Heck, I'd say that John is at his best as a comical rogue whenever he throws one of his trademark tantrums, because it's hard not to laugh at a grown man in an important role acting like a full-on toddler. Fascists like Prince John will go to immense measures to propaganda a respectable image to their people, and there's nothing more fragile than a character built on insidious lies. Unlike a lot of other animated comedy villains though, there's just as much effort put into giving this baddie credibility as a force of menace. John may be a big baby, but there's still a scary side to his childish impatience and poor self-control. Sometimes he will actually respond to failure, loss or humiliation with an impulsive rage that we don't see coming. You see, we're so used to him being a whiny brat that when he unleashes his fire, it's so dang unexpected. Whenever this man-child's ego is chipped away by his suffering citizens, he doesn't try to repair his reputation. No, he will actually double down on his taxing and imprisoning, to the point where entire families end up in his overcrowded dingy jail. Not to mention, John's manic obsession with Robin Hood can tap into the prince's insecurity. Every time the dashing Robin escapes his highness, the failure eats at John's already tender ego like a plague of maggots. Ratcliffe from the Pocahontas movies. Ratcliffe is a pampered governor who has set up camp near a Native American settlement in hopes of mining for gold riches, but he ends up becoming obsessed with waging war on the local natives. Ratcliffe spends most of the first Pocahontas movie spoiling himself of luxury, but he's actually pretty good at keeping his overworked men in line and shifting any blame his way onto the natives, as he fuels the fire of prejudice between the emotional soldiers that he's exhausted.
We're slaving away, busting the bags day and night.
For king and country, I know, and I share your fatigue.
At the same time, he'll happily beat down and scold his men too, so that he can retain control over his army, from threatening to hang anyone who fails to shoot a native, to scolding a poor kid for being gun clumsy. However, I do have my qualms with Ratcliffe in the first Pocahontas movie. For example, his obnoxious villain song is more annoyingly catchy than charmingly fun. A corny musical number that replaces creativity with repetitive earworm lyrics and goofy gibberish.
Nonny, nonny, hi, nonny, nonny. Ooh, how I love it. Hi, nonny, nonny, hi, nonny, nonny. Riches, but cheap.
Oh, and Ratcliffe's eventual villain defeat will leave Disney fans with a lot to be desired because of the underwhelming lack of fight back. So, hang on, how did Ratcliffe end up being so high on my list? I don't have that much to praise about him, and his flaws are quite distracting. Well, in a rarity, I'd actually say that this villain improves tenfold in his sequel. In Pocahontas 2, we get a far more compelling Governor Ratcliffe, a villain that has a lot more to work with as a conniving politician. Instead of being given the low-hanging fruit of riling up rowdy soldiers, Ratcliffe now has to grease the palms of England's highest position of power, a task that really challenges the governor's ability to play noble and nice, because he's now being tested as an underling to the monarchy. What's even more investing though, is that Ratcliffe is also trying to ruin Pocahontas' reputation, all without seeming like he has an obvious agenda. So he has to wind up and demean the already self-conscious Pocahontas while pretending like he's just doing his job, thus inspiring a far superior villain song that focuses on menacing atmosphere over being superficially catchy. Pocahontas 2 is a mixed bag sequel to me, but I'm honestly stunned how it turns a very flawed villain into a genuinely well-written antagonist.
My, you look lovely. I can't even see the real you under there. I do hope no one else does.
Saluk from Aladdin 3. Saluk is a conniving master thief who acts as the second in command to the King of Thieves, Qasim. but he tires of his boss's soft side and wishes for the 40 Thieves to embrace their evil more. So, Saluk plots to rid Kasim and take over his crown. I'm not mincing words or being hyperbolic when I say this. Saluk is one of the most badass Disney villains to date. Sure, the average Disney villain can be pretty imposing, but Disney team went above and beyond to make Saluk into one hell of a caricature of macho-ness, but he's also an unstoppable machine in any fight, as he goes on to prove that said gold dusters aren't just a pretty gimmick. Heck, Saluk is such a beast of a man that we even see him beating up a ferocious shark like it's just a Tuesday evening for him. Saluk is more than just his brute strength and rugged manliness though, he's also a cunning manipulator in the game of climbing ranks, a strategist who teams up with the very palace guards that are after him to play a game of chess against Kasim, while brewing feelings of distrust within the 40 Thieves Club.
What's he want us to do now?
He wants you to rot in the palace dungeon.
Sure, the 40 Thieves are understandably apprehensive about Saluk because the guy was never quiet about his resentment towards their king, but Saluk is charismatic enough to dilute any suspicion, all by bombastically overselling how grand and rewarding his version of this underworld society will be. Even though there's a glaring, bitter rivalry between Kasim and Saluk though, it is interesting to juxtapose Aladdin's dad's character flaws against our villain's own darkness. Much like Kasim, Saluk is obsessed with obtaining the legendary Hand of Midas, all because he's been consumed by a greed for gold. But unlike Saluk, Kasim eventually shows restraint and self-control, now realizing how minute the hand is compared to a bond with his long-lost son, or while Saluk, who has no love in his shallow, selfish and empty life, easily surrenders to the hand's curse and faces a pretty harrowing Disney sequel demise. Shere Khan from the Jungle Book movies. This jungle tiger is obsessed with murdering little boy Mowgli out of a fear of man and the potential to create fire. The fan appeal of Shere Khan is entirely rooted in his sophisticated and elegantly cool confidence. He's a tiger who talks with a posh tongue and has a smooth way with words. He wanders the viney corners of this jungle like he's untouchable and knows that every animal fears him, from his intensely creepy stare to his slow, creeping prowl. Heck, even the wolves admit that their entire pack is no match for him. And not even Khan's threat of hypnosis can ruffle his fern. It's not just his inherent threatening presence that gives everyone the shivers though, because he also showcases an impeccable prowess as a hunter too. He's a predator that knows that catching prey all comes down to quiet patience and sharp observance. The skill not only establishes how much of a danger he is to Mowgli, but also aids him as a spy when he needs to gather info on Mowgli's whereabouts or other animals' elements of surprise. As extravagant as Shere Khan is, he actually spends a majority of the film hiding and sneaking around, all while our heroes are none the wiser about his presence. When Shere Khan finally approaches little Mowgli, he doesn't take swift action, has fun with his prey. It's like he's been obsessively daydreaming about his encounter with the boy and now wants to relish in the hunt.
Bravo, bravo. An extraordinary performance. And thank you for detaining my victim.
Even though Shere has an inherently posh and smarmy persona, he could put aside his strict need to seem elegant for the film's big showdown. Shere knows that a bear like Baloo has a fighting chance against him, so he puts in the extra work as a ferocious predator. However, as it's been established, Shere suffers from pyrophobia, and it's this anxious fear of man's red flower that shows the cocky tiger's scared and vulnerable side. In Jungle Book 2, Shere returns with the same motives again, but this time, Mr. Khan is far more vengeful, stern and angry. His pride has been stung by the fact that Mowgli has tarnished his once imposing reputation, and so hunting down Mowgli is now way more personal. Not to mention, jokes and jabs against his character are far more effective on his wounded ego. To be honest too, I've actually grown to love this sequel's finale way more than the first films, all because it tests our hero's ability to throw off the tiger's notoriously impressive hunting skills, all while said prey vs predator fight takes place in the grandiose set of a lava-surrounded temple. Shan Yu from Mulan. The leader of the Han tribe is a barbaric man who wants to conquer China at all costs, but he will have to slay the entire Chinese military and outwit undercover female soldier Mulan. This towering brick house is a ruthless murderer that spares no one in his oppressive takeover of the Empire of China, his army wiping out village to village without any remorse, but like a powerful hurricane that's out for blood. Sure, there's an arrogance to his reckless destruction and war-torn path, but that's the thing, Shan Yu also prides himself on the menace that he strikes. Heck, you're more likely to survive his attack if he wants to use you as a tool to spread his fearful legend.
Now all of China knows you're here.
Perfect.
However, Shan Yu also knows that he's not a one-man army. Yes, he's one smug gentleman, but he's also aware that his brutal soldiers are carrying him to glory, and he's humble enough to use them wisely for their unique skills. There's also a sense of strategy to Shan Yu's warlord oppression too. As much as he loves to pillage and plunder, he's also a keen observer of the rich and enormous environment that he's invading, which explains why he relies so heavily on his trusted falcon to scope every field. On top of this, Shan Yu is also a very agile bloke for someone so big, and there's an ape-like quality to the way that he climbs or jumps. Plus, the man can be quite the aggressive swordsman when he needs to draw his blade for any combat. Interestingly, because he isn't tied down to any traditional Chinese culture, Shan Yu is actually quite open-minded about Mulan being a female warrior, and he actually treats our heroine like any other soldier that dares to challenge him. Although, that lack of sexism doesn't stop the brute from underestimating Mulan's prowess as a soldier, and our villain faces quite a ridiculously colourful end for someone so badass. Dr. Hamsterviel from the Lilo and Stitch sequels. This gerbil-like alien plans to steal every single one of Jumba's experiments with help from ex-galactic Captain Gantu. Now, I'm not naive, this is a fluffy little guy with the menace of a domestic rodent, but Hamsterviel is still exceptionally fun as a comical antagonist. There's just something inherently hilarious about a villain this adorable, screeching colourful insults at the top of his lungs and commanding himself like he's an 8-foot monster. It's a delusion that helps the comedy write itself. Oh, and let's be fair, the massive and lean Gantu is the one who compensates for Hamsterviel's lack of genuine threat.
What? Who is this?
A little Earth girl who can be a gigantic pain in the rear.
So let's not like Hamsterviel is completely unaware of his size disadvantage. Despite having a doctor title, Hamsterviel isn't actually particularly exceptional or talented at science. However, he can make up for this as the shady funder of Jumba's successful line of experiments, a role that makes him feel entitled to not only steal Jumba's work, but also hostage Jumba to make experiments for him. Not to mention, Hamsterviel might be weak in the science department, but he's still a sly master of crime who can construct tactics that benefit his every mission. Heck, I would say that his overall evil scheme in Leroy and Stitch fantastically illustrates that fact, as he uses a Stitch clone named Leroy to maneuver around every obstacle in his quest to take over the Intergalactic Council and counter Lilo and Stitch's experiment army. From sending the experiment's inventor and his strongest creature into an ominous black hole, to cleverly using Leroy as a Stitch decoy to crack past the Council's tight security, to throwing every single experiment into a stadium full of Leroy clones like lambs to the slaughter. Hamsterviel is such a spot-on demonstration of a wacky comedy villain that's able to make kids giggle while still being impressively strategic at the same time.
Sure, my galactic dominance. I am now off to Earth to eliminate those pesky experiments.
Scroop from Treasure Planet. This spider-like alien is part of John Silver's crew of pirates, but he doesn't take John Silver himself seriously and tends to just do his own thing, which can cause problems when his captain is trying to pull off an undercover heist of a treasure map. There's no denying how unsettling this monstrous alien is. He's a spindly and blood-red creature with a gravelly, otherworldly voice who you would hate to run into on a spaceship.
Strong talk, but I know otherwise.
Despite giving off a threatening, scary aura, he has quite the fragile pride, and the slightest insult can stir up his unhinged side. Also, because he's not entirely loyal to John Silver, we are constantly on edge, as we know that he won't always follow orders or show any honor to some kind of pirate code. He's a beast that only follows his own rules and puts healing his ego before his captain's strategies. This unpredictability doesn't dominate his villainy entirely though, because he's still a very crafty pirate who knows how to cover his tracks. Like when he cruelly throws the ship's first mate, Mr. Arrow, into the dark void of a black hole, not only does he report the tragedy himself while faking remorse to slickly push suspicion off himself, but he also casually throws Jim under the bus. It's ghastly enough that Scroop sent an innocent man towards an ambiguous fate, but the fact that he shifts the blame onto an already insecure teenager is extra vile. However, Scroop's moment to shine actually comes when he plays guard to the eventually hijacked ship. This is when he enters his prime as a villain, because he's off his leash now and can go ape as an insectoid assassin, as Disney adopts an alien-esque atmosphere to back up the creep's predatory sneaking and striking.
Stupid robot's gonna get us all killed.
Cabin boy.
Gaston from Beauty and the Beast. Gaston is a worshipped town idol who has gained huge community popularity for his handsome good looks, incredible physique, and talent for hunting. However, behind closed doors, this is actually a very entitled and chauvinistic man who will do anything it takes to marry the beautiful and well-read Belle. Arrogance is the defining trait of this immature and sneering villain. He's a pig of a man that's so full of himself that he fails to appreciate Belle as a person or respect what she even wants.
It's about time you got your head out of those books and paid attention to more important things. Like me.
To Gaston, she's just a pretty bookworm that he can fetishize. He even has the audacity to organize a whole wedding for Belle and himself before she's even said yes yet. Then, once rejected, Gaston's pettiness gradually evolves into something far more insidious. He's such a sore loser and control freak that he ends up childishly marinating on his rejection as his wounded and pouting ego stirs and stirs his rotten jealousy. From here on out, Gaston stops focusing on proving his macho bravado and starts displaying a level of cunning that you wouldn't expect from a shallow beefcake. I mean, it takes some pretty decent brain cells to come up with a plan that ties bribing a mental asylum with marriage blackmail. But Gaston's plan B is just as instinctive and well-timed, as the brutish hunter quickly shifts the mob's attention away from Belle's dad's sanity and onto riling their hatred towards a heartbroken and recently redeemed beast, as Gaston fearmongers his fanbase into pitting war against his very own romantic rival. Sure, Gaston is a sharp shooter and a brash fighter in this finale, but he fails to realize that those aren't the traits that Belle finds attractive. No matter how impressive Gaston is at fighting a beast twice his size, that means naff all when it's Beast's new sense of humanity that has won Belle's heart. McLeach from The Rescuers Down Under. This evil poacher is after a giant golden eagle, and he kidnaps a nature-loving boy called Cody to help him track down its nest. But our beloved Bianca and Bernard come to the kid's rescue. Much like Sykes, there's something darkly realistic about this Disney villain. He's a sick-minded criminal that feels no conscience when it comes to slaying wildlife for profit or interrogating a kidnapped scared child. But at the same time, there's a twisted sense of humor to McLeach that creepily contrasts against the callousness towards all life, as he talks with a cheeky glint in his eye and a smug sass in his tone. Heck, when McLeach eventually threatens to drop Cody to his death, he rejoices in a chance to sing and dance, all while a child has been sent to his watery grave.
They was looking so hard for you, and now they're gonna fight!
Yeesh. Now yes, this is a very nasty man who has sewer-level morals and ethics, but he doesn't go around randomly poaching like a lunatic. He's a very deep thinker that puts tactic and strategy first. Contemplation is the key to his hunt, and he will happily take a break to use his noggin first. This skillful knack for game planning is also applied to McLeach's questioning of Cody. I mean, this is a stubborn kid that puts animal lives first, so our villain has to sensibly keep the boy alive, while also sneakily utilizing Cody's close bond with the rare bird. Not to mention, even though McLeach is a traditional outback man that lives off the grid, he's actually a very technology-driven villain. I'd actually argue that he's maybe one of Disney's most cyber-focused animated baddies, and every single one of his advanced hunting gadgets adds to his menace as a poacher. You'll be happy to know though, that this wretched and foul kidnapper does end up getting a taste of his very own medicine. Lady Tremaine from the Cinderella trilogy. In the first Cinderella film, Tremaine has turned a stepdaughter into a house servant and trains his obnoxious daughters to win over the prince at an upcoming ball. However, Cinderella's fairy godmother uses her enchanted wand to give Cinders the perfect night out. Then, after Cinderella leaves the ball in a hurry, she leaves behind her glass slipper, which the prince can use to locate his potential bride. Tremaine is a villainess who gives off a dark energy just by being herself. Her scowling stare will run your blood cold, and a creepily calm voice is bound to make you shiver. I mean, this is a woman who scolds her own enslaved stepchild anytime she tries to have her own say.
Oh yes, and the tapestries, and the draperies.
But I just finished.
Do them again!
On top of this, Tremaine plays favoritism with her blood daughters, Anastasia and Drizella, but not out of genuine love. No, it's obvious that the lady is just being a controlling stage mum who wants to live out a dream life through her youthful offspring. In a way, it's kind of pathetic. Tremaine wants to come off as this classy and regal woman, yet she has to strike fear into Cinderella to get a housemaid and use her very own children to climb the power ladder. She's a sad woman who stinks of desperation, and that odor is at its strongest in the finale, when Tremaine goes to barbaric lengths to force things her way and keep the genuinely brave Cinders away from her scheme to steal Cinderella's place. In Cinderella 2, Tremaine only makes a short appearance, but it's this cameo that further illustrates Tremaine's thumb over her kids, as we get to see the lady being even even stricter over Anastasia and Drusilla. Heck, she's so oppressive this time that she makes her old self seem like a relaxed parent. However, Cinderella 2 is also another strong example of how Tremaine is less powerful than she acts, because no matter how hard the lady tries to pull apart Anastasia from a new adorable crush, Anastasia just has to speak a bit louder for herself for Tremaine to bow out as a control freak. All because, at the end of the day, narcissists only have as much power as their victim gives them. In the final film in the Cinderella trilogy, A Twist in Time, Tremaine actually becomes a legit threat, all thanks to gaining the unlimited power of the fairy godmother's wand. This time, the lady is at her most intimidating, as the wand grants Tremaine the freedom to bend space and time itself. As invincible as Tremaine seems though, she's still having to play strategy games against Cinderella. Sure, Tremaine can do whatever she wants with her brand new wand, but she's still up against a brave princess who is very capable of being moves ahead of her evil stepmother.
I am not going to let you get away with this.
We already have.
Ratigan from The Great Mouse Detective. Ratigan is a sewer rat that is scheming to replace the Mouse Queen of England with a robot in order to stage his very own monarch crowning, but his sworn nemesis, Detective Basil, is hot on the rat's trail. This villain is fascinatingly ashamed of his natural roots as a sewer-dwelling rat, so much so that he goes to every length possible to paint himself as a high-class mouse, and violently punishes any henchman who refers to him as a rat. This delusional pride totally explains why he's so fixated on becoming the Mouse King of England, because he's clearly convinced himself that becoming the highest ranking mouse will clear his rat image and make his fabricated persona official. Speaking of which, Ratigan has put his whole self into creating his public image, as he fully commits to his part through elegant mannerisms, smarmy confident smirk, and 5-star London fashion sense. If you didn't know the real him, you would believe that he's always been a man of luxury. The thing is though, it's his rat physique that helps him to tower over all other animals in the film, including our lanky stick of a hero. Rats tend to be heavier and larger than mice, and Ratigan should have owned that. However, it's Ratigan's historical rivalry with Basil that we love the most. These two have a vividly developed ongoing detective versus criminal conflict that's boiling with tension and personal bitterness. Their competitive obsession with each other makes for a gripping back and forth battle of ego and mind. They're the smartest rodents in London, and their desperate need to outwit the other is what makes the crime case so engaging.
Ratigan, no one can have a higher opinion of you than I have, and I think you're a slimy, contemptible sewer rat.
At the same time though, Ratigan and Basil are different flavors of intelligence. While Basil is a compulsive and focused man with a knack for small details and clear evidence, Ratigan can be ambitious and creative with his depraved brain, but the execution of his projects are often hindered by his impatience and impulsiveness. I mentioned how seriously Ratigan takes his image, but once all the cogs in his scheme fall out of his evil plan's machine, his inner rat tears through his pristine appearance, and he becomes this feral and rabid creature of the night. Almost like his mask has been ripped off, and this is the real Ratigan. Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty. This almighty sorceress is upset when she's not invited to Princess Aurora's baby shower, so she curses the royal infant. Aurora will prick her finger on a spinning wheel and die. However, a trio of good fairies tweak this spell by turning the death part to an eternal slumber and adding true love's kiss as the antidote to said forever sleep. This villainess is such a splendid example of how great a villain can be when they're unapologetically evil and own said pure darkness with a glee. There's no sob story or deep lore for Maleficent's cruelty. She's simply 500% malicious. The way that this sorceress carries herself always compels me as a viewer too. She's a regal villainess that commands every room that she walks into, and her ominous elegance is spellbinding to watch.
You poor simple fools, thinking you could defeat me!
Now sure, Maleficent's evil curse could be easily nitpicked by modern audiences, but it makes sense that a diva this grandiose and petty would put spectacle and spite before logical practicality. At the same time too, Mal is able to effectively adapt to the holes in a tantrum-inspired scheme and work against the fairy's noble efforts to protect the princess. From depending on a trusted raven Diablo to gather info, to hypnotizing Aurora into pricking a finger on purpose, to trapping the prince that could give the true love's kiss. I'd also say that Maleficent gets to shine the most once Aurora is sent to sleep, because this is when she gets to go all out as a sorceress. The waiting game is officially over, and now Mal can use her powerful diabolical magic to thwart the heroic prince and the fairies that raised the princess. I don't say this lightly either. Mal's unleashed magic is a sight to behold, and she really does give Philip and the fairies a run for their money. Especially when she transforms into her most iconic form, a shadowy and green fire-breathing dragon that makes Madame Mim's final transformation look cute in comparison.
Now shall you deal with me, O prince? and all the powers of hell!
Cruella De Vil from the 101 Dalmatians films. This campy fashionista has dreams of the perfect Dalmatian fur coat, so she dognaps 99 Dalmatian puppies and orders her bumbling minions, Horace and Jasper, to slaughter the pups for her fashion dreams. I utterly adore this villainess. She's a very sick and disgusting woman who has zero remorse about murdering innocent puppies, but she goes about her crime with so much flamboyance. She's completely unforgivable as a person, but we can't not adore how she commands herself with glamour and splendor. I would go as far as to say that a wicked sense of humor makes her one of the funniest rogues in Disney's baddie gallery. Sure, Cruella makes very little effort to hide her evil, and our heroes are suspicious of her puppy adopting intent from day one. However, Miss De Vil does do whatever she can to avoid any consequences to her actions. Whether she's calling Anita to show pretend concern, or putting extreme pressure on an idiot henchman to get the puppies killed before the police arrive.
I want the job done tonight.
Are we gonna do it?
Any way you like, poison them, drown them, bash them in the head.
This is a villainess that owns her evil with glee, but also knows the lengths that she has to go to get away with her entitled crimes. Oh, and Cruella is actually impressively smart for someone so unhinged and over the top. Even when Pongo and Birdie come up with the genius plan to disguise all 99 pups, Cruella is crazily obsessive enough to catch on to the worthy trick. In 101 Dalmatians 2, Cruella is still obsessed with fur, and has become miserable after being banned from fur altogether. However, after being inspired by an artist called Lars, who owns a spot canvas collection, the fashionista decides to reignite her Dalmatian fur coat project.
This could be it. This could be the cure for my craving. My analyst said I should find something to substitute for my magnificent obsession.
This sequel might be rehashing Cruella's same villain scheme all over again, but we also get to understand Miss De Vil way more. Sure, we still think she's crazy and evil, but we learn far more about her spot obsession and deep dive into why the shape has consumed her life. There's also a brilliant character dynamic between Lars and Cruella. While Lars paints for passion and enjoys himself being creatively pushed by the demanding fashion fan, he's also completely naive to the fact that he's actually just catering to a mad woman's sickness. It's like watching Jeffrey Dahmer making friends with Picasso. These two have a great relationship with a weird romantic subtext that helps spice up this Disney sequel's recycling of the first film's plot, which just goes to show that the simplest seasoning can shake up a rehash.
Will you do a painting just for me? To ease my pain? If
you will be my muse.
Oh, no, darling.
Merlock. From the DuckTales movie, this diabolical sorcerer is on a mission to steal a legendary magic lamp from Scrooge, which he used to proudly own as a genie master. Merlock is like an ancient shadow that hides in the background of modern times, an immortal boogeyman that uses others to do his dirty work while he reaps the benefits after the labor is finished. Even without the aid of a powerful enchanted lamp, this is still a rather intimidating and imposing wizard. I mean, this is a man who is so overwhelmingly evil that he's left his name in the worst pits of history with his twisted wishes, and has given the genie an infinite amount of horrible trauma.
That's just it. Merlock has unlimited wishes because he has a magic talisman. And when he puts it on the lamp, he gets as many wishes as he wants. Now do you see why I'm a little jumpy?
He's also already pretty dang strong as well. Not only is he able to casually bend a scepter made of gold like it's nothing, but he's also gifted with a special medallion, which can help him to transform into any animal he wants. While Merlock tends to favour turning into a big bird by default, he's still humble and skilled enough to know which animals serve each moment in his quest. Whether that means becoming a rat to help him scurry through the McDuck mansion, or turning into an insect for spying purposes. At the same time though, this medallion doesn't make Merlock boringly overpowered. Sure, the magical advantages are very obvious, but you also get to see the downsides or dangers of each animal choice too. Now sure, Christopher Lloyd is certainly hamming himself up as usual, and the director clearly let the known scenery eater go all out while behind the microphone.
At last, after all these centuries, the lamp will be mine again!
However, Lloyd is still able to brilliantly capture the genuine threat of Merlock and even challenge elements of his Judge Doom character into his sinister delivery. This film does an excellent job of hyping up Merlock's legacy and legend too, and our villain actually lives up to this majestic lore fantastically in the cinematic finale, an apocalyptic climax that gives the evil sorcerer everything he needs to pose as the ultimate Lovecraftian bad guy, while sending a heart-wrenching feeling of lost hope for our heroes.
Relax. It's going to be like old times again.
Doris from Meet the Robinsons. Don't snicker at the fact that this villain is essentially a little robot hat, because she's actually really dang creepy in execution. Doris is a robot hat who was invented to assist humans, but she felt like she could do so much more. She's a red-eyed machine with powerful and dangerous robotic arms. Beyond a disturbing cold technology though, is a mistress of manipulation, all by strategically using her charms and tricks to con the misguided bowler hat guy like he's a puppet.
Oh, a mini Doris! I didn't even know you could do that! It's so cute!
While Bowler Hat Guy acts as the face of the film's time travel scheme, Doris craftily plays into the role of his doting minion, all while showing that she is the far more smarter and more confident of the two. So she escaped a lab and manipulated Bowler Hat Guy into helping her ruin the life of her inventor, Lewis, that ends up creating a nightmarish future timeline that might traumatize some kids.
I call them helping hands.
Doris, what's happening? I don't understand. He just wanted to ruin his future, not this.
Now, sure, there's a glaring plot hole to Doris' scheme, because if Lewis's science career is thwarted, then Doris herself will never be invented. However, I think that's Doris' Achilles heel. She's so obsessed with revenge against her inventor that she foolishly underestimates how much power that Lewis has over Doris' fate as an invention.
I am never going to invent you.
Tamatoa from Moana. When Maui and Moana enter the world of monsters to retrieve Maui's hook, we find out that the hook is on the shell of a giant crab called Tamatoa.
It's a sparkly, shiny... Wait a minute. Oh, it's a human!
Now yes, Tamatoa has very limited screen time in Moana, and most of that cameo is dedicated to his villain song, Shiny. However, despite his short stint in the film, there's actually a lot to work with. Firstly, this decapod is brimming with heaps and heaps of confidence. He's an egomaniac who revels in his glittery decor and imposing size, while dancing with immense charismatic energy during his musical number. We feel this sense of hopelessness around him because he's in so much control and power in his homely cave.
I need 3 words to tear her argument apart. Your granny lied.
As he uses intense violence and tight claustrophobia to intimidate his tiny prey. Even when Maui finally gets a win, Tamatoa continues to bully and tease with a grin, as he scorns and tortures the demigod physically, while viciously digging into Maui's thin skin as an insecure hero. Tamatoa is more than just a block in Maui and Moana's path though. He's also very important thematically, because Shiny's lyrics are designed to punch down Maui's huge ego and expose the demigod's vulnerabilities to Moana, thus enriching Maui as a character and developing his bond with the island chief in training. At the same time, Tamatoa's excessive desire to coat himself in shallow shininess plays into the movie's message of embracing who you are on the inside. Yes, this big crab has turned himself into a piece of art, but it's purely cosmetic because he's garbage on the inside.
Shiny. I'm so shiny. Didn't help me though, did it?
King Candy from Wreck-It Ralph. This kooky man is the monarch of the Japanese racing video game Sugar Rush, but he's actually a runaway racing game character called Turbo that has hijacked Sugar Rush. Now, I did put a lot of Disney twist villains very low on this ranking list, but that's not to say that the House of Mouse have never made a great twist baddie before. I can't say that King Candy is this trope done at its very best. Wreck-It Ralph trusts its audience and goes the extra mile to make us constantly question King Candy's character. Like, on the one hand, Candy seems like a good and caring king that happens to be a bit quirky.
And if I ever see you here again, Wreck-It Ralph, I'll lock you in my fungeon. Fungeon? Fun dungeon. You know, it's a play on words. It's a fun... Never mind!
But on the other hand, he's also quite a secretive king that seems to be up to something shady. So a part of us buys that King Candy's royal orders are coming from well intent, because he leans so well into his compassionate leader character. But he's also shady enough to leave us with suspicion at the same time. All while this is going on, Wreck-It Ralph casually develops the urban legend of Turbo, a backstory that establishes the consequences of leaving a game, while also sneakily foreshadowing the existence of Turbo himself. As soon as it turns out that King Candy is really Turbo, it doesn't feel like a cheap surprise to get an easy shock out of the audience.
What the? Who are you?
I'm Turbo! The greatest racer ever!
Everything clicks together because the film left so many solid connections between Candy and Turbo. Sure, For most of the film, King Candy is at his most threatening as a skilled racer, but don't forget, this king is actually a humble disguise, and the real Turbo is a glitching video game escapee with cyborg powers. So the actual final boss of Wreck-It Ralph is an unholy abomination with a level of mutant power that can effectively challenge our toughest stone big hero.
I'm now the most powerful virus in the arcade! I should thank you, but it'd be more fun to kill you.
Hades from Hercules. The head of the underworld, Hades, is hell-bent on taking over Mount Olympus, but his heroic demigod nephew keeps thwarting his complex scheme. Now yes, this Hades is closer to the Christian devil than any classic Greek mythology, but very little in this movie actually sticks to Mediterranean folklore, and the satanic influences on Hades are what make him so dang awesome. I mean, this is a god that is creatively defined by his hellish features, from his flaming hair that goes inferno whenever he loses his temper, to the way that his body can turn into fluid smoke to grab things. Is some of the most inventive villain animation in Disney history. On top of all of this, Hades has this delicious crooked personality. He's like a sneaky used car salesman with a knack for designing crafty deals that work to his selfish seedy favour. Oh, and if a deal keeps getting rejected, he'll just add on more details to sweeten the agreement.
Here's the trade-off. You give up your strength for about 24 hours. Okay, say the next 24 hours. And Meg here is free as a bird and safe from harm. We dance, we kiss, we schmooze, we carry on, we go home happy. What do you say? Come on.
Keep in mind too, this villain has been spending years upon years on his takeover plans, so there's intricate detail to his overall scheme and chess-like strategy to his fights against Herc. Sure, he made the big mistake of not making sure that his minions effectively killed baby Herc 18 years ago, but once he becomes aware of that big oversight, you'll notice that he's now a more on-the-ball villain, whether he's in the audience of a Hercules vs monster fight that he's orchestrated, which shows that Hades can learn from his mistakes.
My favorite part of the game. Sudden death.
Admittedly, the rivalry between Hercules and Hades is very one-sided for most of the movie, all because Hades and Herc never met face to face until the movie's end finale, which does mean that our hero and villain's relationship lacks development. However, there's no denying that Hades makes things very personal for Hercules. This death god is trying to hijack Herc's family's kingdom, has been using his henchwoman as a pawn against Herc's feelings, and one of his deals leads to Meg's life being on the line. You can't get any more personal than all that.
Got a blaze, there's a whole cosmos up there waiting for me, with, hey, my name on it.
Jafar, from Aladdin and the Return of Jafar. The royal advisor to the Sultan of Agrabah, Jafar, is trying to sneak his way to power, so he convinces the poor and lovesick Aladdin to take a magic lamp from the Cave of Wonders. But Owl ends up with the lamp himself, and our hero gets an all-powerful genie on his side. This is maybe the most iconic Disney villain to date, and perhaps the first House of Mouse baddie that comes to everyone's mind when naming villains. From his luxurious red and black fashion sense, to his slimy, over-enunciated voice.
My life is but to serve you, my lord.
Jafar's whole identity has understandably stood the test of time. Even though Jafar doesn't have access to the genie's magic for most of the movie, he greatly makes up for this with a wide array of enchanted tools to aid his villainy. Plus, he's also willing to use old-fashioned stage magic for escape purposes. Of course, his most memorable tool of evil is his evil snake staff, a hypnosis weapon that acts as an extension of Jafar's hungry desire for control, and a reflection of Jafar's snake-like personality. That's not to say that Jafar is useless without his sorcery, because he's also an expert at weaving lies and putting on believable acts, whether he's exploiting Owl's financial struggles as an old man, or twisting the truth as a conniving assistant to the Sultan. However, Jafar's weakness is actually his desperate need to climb the hierarchy ladder. Sure, he's able to land the genie eventually, who can give him whatever he wants, but every ranking has its own superior, and Owl cleverly knows this biting truth. In the first Aladdin sequel, Return of Jafar, the evil sorcerer makes his dramatic reprise as a very vengeful wizard. What's gripping about this strike back though, is that Jafar is hindered by the fact that he's now a genie with a master. Sure, his magic is at its most powerful ever, maybe even more strong than genies, but he's still tied down as a slave to the lamp, which means that he has to manipulate his very own master, by either wasting every wish requested to him, or cunningly catering to his master's greed.
That was 2 wishes. Take your time with the third. Or you will wish you had never been born.
Not to mention, Jafar still finds time to stitch together a layered evil scheme that's made up of intricate steps and calculated moves, because it's a plan that shows so much carefully thought out detail. You can tell that Jafar has been plotting this conspiracy all while being stuck in the lamp. The Return of Jafar is a Disney sequel that's grown on me over time, and Jafar's villainy really deserves way more appreciation. It's not just a shallow revenge plot, it's actually a great example of justifying bringing back the same House of Mouse baddie.
So, how did it go?
I think she took it rather well.
Scar. From The Lion King, Scar is a neurotic and bitter lion who envies his brother's throne, so he convinces a community of starving hyenas to help him to assassinate King Mufasa and convince Prince Simba to run away from the kingdom of Pride Rock. Now, Scar is far from a physically active lion. He tends to laze in the shade while playing with his food and doesn't really do much else. However, Scar fully knows that his brother is the brawns and he is the brains, hence why Scar's villainy is built entirely on his masterful conspiracy plotting skills. He's a rogue that strategizes and schemes in a way that benefits his campy uncle facade, all while he gets to avoid getting blood on his own hands. You can tell that Scar has thought of every single beat of his royal conspiracy, because it all runs so dang smoothly, and he never seems ruffled about any setbacks. Like when Simba survives the stampede, Scar instinctively weaves together a guilt trip on his nephew and initiates a backup prince assassination attempt. Sure, as a king, Scar is an idle slacker who refuses to take his job seriously.
Oh, Zazu, do lighten up. Sing something with a little bounce in it.
It's a small world after all.
No, anything but that.
But that's Tyrant's for you. Scar never actually intended to lead Pride Rock in any special way, plus all of his talk of a better life for the hyenas was all fancy talk to con their cooperation. All Scar ever cared about was stealing the throne from his powerful brother, like a jealous kid who only wants a toy because their sibling is playing with it. Scar is an evil genius through and through, sure, but he's also a big baby narcissist with an unhealthy brother complex. So of course his time as king is all spent on barking orders and slouching in Mufasa's cave, all while Pride Rock itself devolves into a famine-ridden hellhole where the natural order has fallen into disarray, and the worst crime that you can commit is comparing the deeply insecure Scar to his superior sibling.
What did you say?
Nothing.
You know the law. Never ever mention that name in my presence.
Once Simba finally returns to Pride Rock, our villain is greatly challenged because he's 100% aware that he can't protect his stolen throne by sheer force. So, Scar falls back to his natural talent of conniving manipulation. Who needs to spar with the true king when you can just mine his shame for public display? Sure, fighting does become a last option for Scar, but deep down, he knows that no matter how much he tries, Simba has the upper hand as the stronger lion. Hence why the bratty villain resorts to cheap tactics like the coward that he is. What's truly satisfying though, is that it isn't the just and righteous Simba that wastes Scar, but Scar's very own minions, as we get to watch the cowering lion scrambling for words while his ship sinks and his carcass becomes a delicious buffet for the very tribe that he's been starving.
Let me explain. No, you don't understand. No, I didn't mean... No,
Yzma from The Emperor's New Groove. Yzma is a royal advisor who desperately wants the throne of Emperor Cusco, so she tries to assassinate His Highness, but ends up turning the Emperor into a llama instead. Now, Yzma and a dopey minion Kronk must try to stop Cusco from finding a cure to become human again. This dastardly diva is an unforgettable entry in the House of Mouse Rogues Gallery, a campy, glamorous, and movie-stealing sorceress with the energy and class of a Golden Age movie star, as well as the creativity and intelligence of a master scientist of chemical magic. She's an eccentric villainess who totally fits the kooky and silly world of the Emperor's New Groove, while also demonstrating an unhinged relentlessness as an antagonist. Yes, this comedic villain faces a myriad of obstacles and setbacks in the name of S-tier comedy, but no level of humiliation can hinder her determination as a llama hunter on the road. Heck, not even being later transformed into a fluffy kitten stops this woman's inflated desire to fix a mess and steal the throne that she feels belongs to her.
Looking for this. Is that my voice? Is that my voice? Oh well.
At the same time, there's this earnest human side to Yzma that explains why she's a fan favourite too. Yes, she's committing some very wicked things in this movie, but I can't help but resonate with her self-care needs, or laugh at how she'll delay a scheme step for a tasty treat. I can't avoid the big truth though, that being how Yzma's relationship with her himbo henchman does a lot of the heavy lifting for this villainess's appeal. Yzma is great on her own, don't get me wrong, but Kronk adds that spinach-flavoured tang to her villainy. There's just this perfect magic to pairing an elegant, obsessed evil diva with a wholesome beefcake with a youthful innocence. It's a dynamic that leads to a hilarious clash of personalities, which can make the villain team's antics worth switching over to.
This is extract of llama! Ugh.
You know, in my defense, your poisons all look alike. You might think about relabeling some of them.
But there's also this unlikely chemistry between the two, one that's founded on a kindred love of food and Kronk's puppy-like loyalty to the sorceress. Heck, if Yzma never ended up insulting Kronk's intelligence in the end, I could actually imagine the Diva and Timbo remaining strong as an antagonist duo. Alas, it's Yzma's spite towards her underappreciated second hand that undoes her chances of winning.
Strange. That usually works.
Zira from The Lion King 2. Zira is a former member of a cult dedicated to the worship of Scar, and said brainwashed lions have been banished to the Outlands to suffer in hunger and pain. Driven by vengeance, Zira plans to groom her son into a killer and use him to assassinate Simba. There's admittedly an element of tragedy to Zira's character that I can't look over. She's a victim of Scar's cult rearing, who instead of getting the help she needs, has been thrown into a life of torment and famine. This suffering has, over time, sent Zira on a mental spiral. The lioness's sanity decayed by poor natural health and the remnants of living in a dark cult. That's not to say that we sympathise entirely with her though, because this is still an evil mother who's guilty of child neglect, Messiah-like favouritism, and corrupting her kids with a warped ideology.
You brilliant child. I'm so proud of you. You have the same conniving mind that made Scar so powerful.
She's a deranged mother that has prioritized the assassination of Simba far above raising a healthy family, thus creating 3 offspring with low self-esteem and a damaging pressure to impress their military-like parent. Although, when Zira's eldest, Nuka, ends up getting killed in the field, we do end up seeing a glimmer of the Zira that used to be. A lioness who was once a loving mother before her mind was defiled by Scar. As a villainess, Zira's strength comes in her ability to lead as the charismatic matriarch of her pride. Backed by the brilliant snarl of Susan Plachette,
to our glorious return to power.
Zira commands a war-hungry cult with a patient strategy and cutting precision. Sure, this villainess is very eager for Simba's blood, but despite how much vengeance has consumed her life, she's still willing to spend many years turning Kovu into a killing machine, and even show restraint when it comes to using Kovu as a Trojan horse. It's only when her plan fails that Zira abandons any wit or timing in favour of lunging headfirst into war, as the lioness riles up her already malnourished and long-suffering pride into going all out as frenzied soldiers. Sure, Zira is given a chance to repent once Simba offers the branch of peace, but she's far too mentally gone to consider a truce, let alone let herself have a redemption, and her story sorrowfully ends with a self-defeat that's more pitiful than satisfying.
Zira, come on! I'll help you.
John Silver. From Treasure Planet, this pirate captain is working undercover as the cook for a ship on a voyage to the legendary Treasure Planet, and he's determined to steal the map to the bounties left behind by Space Captain Flint. However, John becomes endeared by the map's founder, Jim Hawkins. One of the best sci-fi twists of the Robert Louis Stevenson story that this film offers is the cyborg revision of Captain John. It's more than just a cool look for a Disney villain, it's also a fantastic way to make Chef John's on-screen cooking engagingly fantastical and aid Captain John's menace as a pirate who wants to strike fear.
Mr. Silver? Why, Mr. Arrow, sir. Bring in such fine-looking distinguished gents to grace my humble galley. Had I known, I'd have tucked in my shirt.
The funny thing is though, as hard as John tries to give everyone the willies, he's actually a naturally charming gentleman, sort of a crook with a heart of gold. Heck, it's his organic charisma that really helps him to pull off his humble cook disguise. The heart of this villain though, is his complex sincere bond with the coming-of-age Jim Hawkins. It's a believable human connection, founded on a mutual admiration, that shows how much both parties need each other. John becomes the father figure for a teenage rebel with abandonment issues, and Jim brings out John's long-repressed genuine emotions. You see, John has become consumed by his greed for gold, and his pirate lifestyle has made him too scared to be sensitive. But by becoming a role model to a lost and scared teenager challenges all of that.
That's all right, Jimbo. It's all right.
This is the strength of Treasure Planet's story. We are essentially watching a pirate captain wrestling between remaining loyal to his dangerous crew and his conscience as a father figure. So every bout and chase between our hero and villain is drenched in complicated feelings and conflicting emotions. It's John's internal battle between his affection for Jim and unhealthy obsession with Flint's gold that inspires our villain's potential redemption arc. as the film tests his pirate captain by forcing him to choose between one or the other, leaving us to bite our nails as the Buccaneer makes his pick.
Get back! I like you, lad. But I've come too far to let you stand between me and me treasure.
Mother Gothel from Tangled. This selfish witch has been hogging the healing magic of a powerful enchanted flower, but when said flower is taken to help the pregnant queen, its magic is transferred into Princess Rapunzel's hair. So, Gothel kidnaps Rapunzel and raises the princess as her own, but only so that she can exploit her daughter's golden threads. Gothel is a frighteningly realistic take on how narcissistic parents treat their children.
As you know, tomorrow is a very big
Rapunzel,
day.
look in that mirror. You know what I see? I see a strong, confident, beautiful young lady. Oh, look, you're here too.
It's eerie how authentic she is as an abusive control freak. She's a woman who adopts every slick trick in the Wicked Parents book, all to keep her sharp claws on Rapunzel's hair, from diminishing Rapunzel's self-esteem at every chance, to insisting that she knows what's best as a mother. Gothel chips away at her daughter's agency to the point where poor Rapunzel can't achieve independence or freedom, which is exactly what Gothel needs when the witch only cherishes the princess's magical locks of hair. When Rapunzel finally gathers the courage to leave her tower, Gothel does go into panic mode, but it also doesn't take that long for her to soon switch on a thinking cap and continue her puppet master ways on the road. Whether she's using a matriarchal authority to convince the princess to return home, seducing locals to gather info on her daughter's whereabouts, or using her cunning to appeal to the very ruffians that she warned Rapunzel about. What's interesting though, is that the very instant that Rapunzel breaks free from her puppet strings, Gothel can finally commit pure evil.
Want me to be the bad guy? Fine. Now I'm the bad guy.
She no longer has any use for a mother character because the law that she's created has been broken into shards. So she ends up literally enslaving the very child that she's been raising for 18 years, all because she's pathetically terrified of losing her youthful looks. Her vanity has consumed her waking life so much that imprisoning her own magical daughter is just another day for her. However, after spending 2 decades trying to keep Rapunzel under her thumb, she fails to realize the fragility of hair itself, and we're awarded with a villain defeat that's on par with classic Indiana Jones. Bowler Hat Guy from Meet the Robinsons. Bowler Hat Guy is a crooked fella who is determined to mess up the life of a young inventor called Lewis, with help from his robot partner, Doris. Why? Well, because Bowler Hat Guy is really Lewis's orphanage roommate, Michael Gubian, who lost a baseball game after Lewis's inventing kept him up all night. To me, Bowler Hat Guy is the pinnacle of Disney comedy villains.
My old room.
I think you mean our old room.
What?
Yes, it is I, Mike Yagubian! I know, I'm disgusting.
A lanky and disheveled idiot who steals Meet the Robinsons with his hilarious incompetence.
You're Mary Johnson.
Mary is short for,
Marion?
That'd be a boy name.
Yes?
Then yes.
It's easy to look over how terrible this villain is at being a villain, because every single one of his slip-ups or mistakes are stomach-hurtingly funny, like some of the best Disney comedy I've ever seen.
Look right here, look what I found! It's a stick! Now what did you find? Time travel residue next to DNA from Wilbur Robinson. That, plus my stick, must mean...
At the same time though, Bowler Hat Guy's reckless impulsiveness does have a dash of danger to it, because his ideas are rooted more in lunacy than strategy, and he's at his most stupid when he's unsupervised by Doris. Although I'd say that most of my love for this villain comes from his appeal as a sympathetic and redeemable baddie. There's some sad tragedy to this character, because he was once a talented baseball kid with so much passion for his sport, but one lost game as a kid shaped him into a self-pitying adult. Instead of healthily moving on from failing, Bowler Hat Guy marinated in his darkest feelings, pushed away any contact with others, and lost out on a normal coming of age, thus making him super vulnerable to the preying Doris.
We both had a score to settle with you, and while my plan for revenge was brilliant, Doris's was... well, we went with Doris's.
This is what makes Bowler Hat Guy so relatable and special to me. Unlike a lot of the other Disney villains, we can actually resonate with his downfall as a person. We can all potentially become guilty of letting our failures steer us down wrong paths. Bowler Hat Guy is all of us, and the perfect reminder to move forward from our mistakes, because the opposite can bring out the worst in us.
Heed my words, Goob. Don't let it go.
Ursula from The Little Mermaid. Ursula is a sea witch who ends up conning a teenage mermaid called Ariel into giving up her voice for a human body, with the clause that Ariel must get a kiss of love from Prince Eric in order to stay human forever. Inspired by the iconic drag queen Divine, Ursula is a flexing sorceress of the sea with the body confidence of a superstar.
But without my voice, how can I...
You'll have your looks, your pretty face. And don't underestimate the importance of body language.
She's a woman who shows off her plus size with a glowing pride, unapologetic vanity, and zero insecurity. Even the way she swims gives off an aura of sultry glamour. As a villainess, Ursula has perfected the art of the deal. Not only does her shrine to screwed over clients show a success rate, but we also get to see her manipulation in action with Ariel, from tapping into Ariel's dreams of land to deflecting any of Ariel's concerns with slick answers. At the same time, Ursula is also exceptional at adapting to setbacks in a scheme. As well written as her clauses are, Ursula can be open to realizing a whole once her plan is executed, and she's fast to throw together a plan B. She's not a villainess who sits around in a cozy lair while hoping for the best to happen.
The little tramp. Oh, she's better than I thought. At this rate, he'll be kissing her by sunset for sure. Well, it's time Ursula took matters into her own tentacles.
She actually throws herself into the ring as Vanessa, a conniving character who can hypnotize Eric into zombie-like lovesickness, leading to the ultimate romantic rival for an already struggling Ariel. The only criticism that I have of Ursula, despite becoming a sea kaiju with the power of a godlike magic trident, it doesn't really take that much to defeat her, and her final form kind of fizzles out in the end. However, why get worked up about this nitpick when Ursula still steals the spotlight as a campy diva who oozes seductive confidence?
Life's full of tough choices, isn't it?
Frollo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Judge Frollo has taken in a hunchback called Quasimodo, but he cruelly forces Quasi to stay in the bell tower of Notre Dame, and teaches his son to develop a prejudice for the traveller community. One day though, a sweet Romani woman called Esmeralda debunks everything that Frollo has taught Quasi, and the judge becomes vengefully obsessed with Esmeralda. As a father to Quasimodo, Frollo focuses on drilling in racist ideologies and making his boy feel low esteem enough to act subservient to the judge. Frollo is only raising Quasi out of religious guilt, so his parenting is less about compassion and driven entirely by control and pressure.
Even this foul creature may yet prove one day to be of use to me.
So Quasi can't think or feel for himself, and lives to please the narcissist who is manipulating him. This is a judge that prides himself on keeping his conscience clean, so every time that the judge makes a diabolical order, he will leap bounds to arrogantly justify himself as a voice of reason and morality.
Such a clever witch. So typical of your kind to twist the truth, to cloud the mind with unholy thoughts.
It's this desperate strive for self-assurance that shows that he's not truly secure about his ethics as a religious man. Most fascinating of all though, is that it's blatantly obvious that Frollo has a lustful attraction towards Esmeralda. Instead of owning up to his horndog infatuation with the very woman he resents, the judge pathetically invents his very own narrative, in which Esmeralda is this conniving witch, and Frollo is some poor old man being taken advantage of, which is the kind of bonkers mind canon that you expect a narcissistic predator to invent for real. Compellingly, Frollo's obsession with control is exactly what deteriorates the judge. The more that Frollo fixates on keeping Quasi under his wing, and Esmeralda in his grasp, the more that the judge strays further and further away from basing his actions on his fear of God. So it's no surprise that our villain eventually risks everything to keep his weird fanfiction alive. So that's my up-to-date ranking of every Disney villain. I hope you enjoyed the list and feel free to watch my other villain ranking videos. There's plenty to choose from. I've been Jambareeqi, cheerio folks.